Bryan, why the incredibly weird, dour, drab backdrop? Well, I'm in the fallout shelter down here. Actually, no, that's not true. Harken back to me. One of my favorite reviews of all time was actually at the old house. It was Twilight Struggle. It's one of my favorite reviews I've ever done. What do you think now? Question of the day. We've talked about this idea before, but when you distill a game down to its basic, essential Aristotelian essence, what are some of the elements that have to remain there for it to be a game that's clearly in the same vein? You said, Bryan, what are you talking about? Here's what I mean. What makes a good distilled version of a game? Now hear me out. Caverna, Cave versus Cave, Le Havre, Inland Port, Agricola, All Creatures Big and Small. These are all distilled versions of a big game. Think of a game that you like that's a distilled version. It doesn't have to be sanctioned, which obviously you can probably tell what I'm talking about now. It doesn't have to be a sanctioned game, but what's a good distilled version of a game that you like to play as a quick version of another game? That's a bit heavier of a question of the day, but let me know in the comments below what game you like to see as a distilled version of a bigger game. Which brings us today to Iron Curtain. Iron Curtain is clearly, obviously, unequivocally a distilled version of Twilight Struggle. Now, it's not sanctioned, it's not the same designer, it's not the same company, not anything like that. But you know it going in that this is definitely like Twilight Bright. Anyway, let's take a look at what Iron Curtain is, what it offers right now. Come back up, talk about is it worth getting, playing, if you like to play a distilled version of Twilight Struggle right now. So here is the starting setup of the game. The starter card goes out. Influence cube for Russians and Americans goes here. The scoring card goes here, right in the center. Whoever gets to the end first wins, or the game plays, and it's either way, it's going to be the highest amount of ideology points, but if you get to the end first, you go ahead and win the game early. If not, the game's played over 2 rounds in which these cards will come into play. The starter card is the same as these types of cards. These are all different countries, different colors, different regions. Now, each of them are divided into USSR or United States. And you can see that from the flag in the top right. What you do is on your turn, you're going to have 5 cards in your hand the first round, 4 cards in your hand the second round. You're going to play one of these cards, and you can play them either for influence, and I'll show you up here what that means. You can play it either for influence, which would be these cubes over here, just like Twilight Struggle. This is worth 4, but if the American player plays this, the event will trigger. Otherwise, the USSR player could play it for the event instead. It says USSR gains 1 ideology point and may then infiltrate 2 influence cubes. Now, infiltrate is a technique that normally what you have to do, if you wanted to play a card out here, you would have to play adjacent to the region that it is. So this is Europe, you would have to play adjacent to Europe, and it would have to be done like this as well. Up and down, left, right, orthogonally, not diagonally. That matters for placing influence, because when you want to place influence out there, you already have to have the card on the board before you can't like chain it. So I couldn't put, okay, so let me spin some influence here. Oh, and now I'm already here, so I can go ahead and move one over to here. You can't hopscotch like that. Influence has to be placed on cards that are there at the beginning of your turn. Now, when you score region, what's going to happen is when all of the Europe cards are out, for instance, and I think there's 6 of them, when all the cards in Europe go out, you score based on who dominates the region. Basically, whoever has the most cards dominated by points there will score the ideology points. Plus, whoever has the most of those cards dominated will score the bonus for Europe. So, depending on how many you win, plus the bonus is how many ideology points you get. Again, if you get all the way to the end, you would win then. Otherwise, you keep playing until both of those turns are over, round 1 and round 2. And then at the end, you'll do what's called the aftermath, in which the extra card you had left over, whoever had it there, this is kind of a weird little tiebreaker rule. You'll count up the ideology points or the cubes that are left on it, and you count that as your total. Boy, that static is doing some crazy stuff. Look at that. You count the ideology points or the cubes that would be on there. Whoever has the most on their aftermath card, whether it be you or the other one, wins. So even if the USSR throws an American card there, it doesn't matter who played it. It's all about having that card there at the end, and whichever team gets the most cubes listed on it in the aftermath gets a bonus of the difference in the two. So there's 3 US, 1 USSR. So they would get 2 points aftermath. You then score in order based on this number here, these colors here. So Europe and then the different countries will score. Whoever ends up with the most points, if they don't win already, wins the game. So that's Iron Curtain. Interesting. It does a lot of things that Twilight Struggle does. You said, Bryan, why are you comparing it to Twilight Struggle? The game stands on its own. Well, it does stand on its own. It is its own game, but I can't help but think. I mean, there are certain rules in the rule book that are, I mean, they're like even written like the words in Twilight. And I'm not accusing anybody of anything. That's not my point. My point is it's clearly meant to be a pastiche, you know, which is a honorable kind of, not parody, but homage to a great game. And there's a rule in Twilight Struggle, for instance, if you have influence in an area and you put more influence down, well, you can't hopscotch. You have to put influence down. And if you want to put more influence on the board, you would have had to have had a network to that place, to that country, as the turn began. Well, there's the same thing here. You can't hopscotch to another card if it's not there already. So I found it interesting. There are a lot of rules that are pretty much exactly straight out of the card-driven CDG games from GMT. The idea of, well, there's events at the bottom of the card, or there's command points. You can spend it for command points, but if you're the Americans and you play the Russians command card as a command point, the event will trigger, just like Twilight Struggle. The event triggers in that. Now, here's the thing. At the end of the day, is it a quicker, faster version of Twilight Struggle? It pretty much is. It does a lot of the same things. You can get the game done much, much, much faster. I think the time on the box here is 20 minutes. So you're in for 2+ hours here, if you're lucky. You're in for 20 minutes here, right? So it is a huge difference. Now, when you compare the two like that, it becomes a little bit more difficult. First of all, if you like this style of game, you should own both of these. This isn't you play this instead of Twilight Struggle. This is hey, I want that same feeling I get from Twilight Struggle, but I want it in 20 minutes instead of 2 hours. Here's the thing though. The beauty, the grandeur of this game and of 1989 and of 1960 is the history. Every card is named after an actual event in history. It has a little blurb, a little historical notion about it. That's what makes the game so special. So when you play this, though, the cards are stripped down. It's just, here's Cuba, and here's what happens with the Cuba card, or the West Germany card, or the Nigeria card. And so a lot of the joy of playing, as a history lover, a lot of the joy of playing Iron Curtain is not there that you get in Twilight Struggle because of the historical aspect. Now the theme is there. What you're doing does feel like an overworld, super, super zoomed out version of the Cold War, but in just a much faster version. So I say all that to say, the art looks nice. You know, it's neat. The cards, it's very kind of like war room style. The actual box looks good. The components are light. They're small. You can play in the airport is what's really good about this. You know, I love games like that. But it's neat. And it's so hard for me to kind of come down on this one because I do love this game so very, very much. So if you like Twilight Struggle, you're going to like Iron Curtain, hands down. There's no doubt. If you don't like Twilight Struggle, you still might like this one, though, just because of the push and pull, tug of war, fast-paced version. A 20-minute kind of area control, fast-paced tug of war game. So in a sense, Iron Curtain might still be for you if you don't care anything about the Cold War, if you don't care anything about the history aspects of this one. I mean, this one's prettier than this one. I mean, this is GMT to its T, you know? But at the end of the day, if you like those mechanics, if you like push and pull, if you like the quick area control, and again, that you can play on an airplane, go ahead and pick up Iron Curtain. The price point is too good to pass this game up. So I'm going to recommend Iron Curtain. I think it's worth getting, even if I have my reservations about it not living up to its predecessor, just in the theme and history alone. As far as the mechanics, as far as what you can do, it's pretty neat. I like it. I like what you can do there. Obviously, the events are stripped down a little bit compared to what the events would be in Twilight Struggle, but it does what it's set out to do. It's set out to be a distilled pastiche to Twilight Struggle, whether that's sanctioned or not, or whether the author's meant to or not. That's what this is. It is a distilled pastiche of Twilight Struggle. And so I can't recommend it enough if you like that sort of aspect. If it's not for you, if that style of game doesn't speak to you, then definitely pass on this because it doesn't scratch the history itch and it doesn't scratch the mechanic itch, if that's the game. So if that's the point. So I'm Bryan Drake here on the Dice Tower. doing another review here. If you want to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, make sure to follow us at The Latest Retro. It doesn't mean anything. It's just the name of our board game channel, because many of you know that we're stage magicians for a living, and you can follow us on there at Bryan Drake Show if you want to see what we do for a living and all the crazy stuff that we do, and see when we're coming to your town. I'm about to end this video. I've got a cold, you can probably tell, and so my brain is not working quite correctly. So that's it. Make sure to follow us. Let me know in the comments below your answer to the question of the day, and until next time, we will see you.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower